For over 40 years, the mission of the World Economic Forum has been committed to improving the state of the world, and this has driven the design and development of the annual meeting program. The annual meeting remains the foremost creative force for engaging leaders in collaborative activities focused on shaping the global, regional and industrial agendas of various countries involved. And Nigeria will be hosting next year's edition. Let's now listen to Dr. Patterson Ekiocha. He's an economist and from the Department of Economics at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. Good morning, Dr. Patterson.
Yeah, good morning.
And thank you for your time with us on the program. The first speaker that we had on the show actually vents his anger, so to speak, on the fact that Nigeria has not been able to set the fundamentals right. And he actually termed the fact that the presidents of the country go around the world shopping for investors. But in your opinion, do you think that we've done enough, despite our efforts to bring in investors? Have we been able to attract these people into the country?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that we live in a world of interdependency, which means no country can develop basically on its own. You really need partners. You need other individuals or other countries to develop. Now, going to shop for investors to come in is not a bad idea. The question one would ask, yes, we really do not have more infrastructure, but has anything been done in that regard? Yes, things have really been done, especially the roads. Now we have the roads. You have the train system. The train system is really working now, even though we are not there yet, but we're really going to get there. Again, you have the port reform. The port reform is working. Initially, when investors bring in their goods into Nigeria, you see that it will take a maximum of 6 weeks to clear their goods, but these days it's now 1 week for you to clear your goods. Well, the point is, what is the counterfactual? Is the government doing anything? Yes, the government is really doing so many things. Assuming that the government is not even doing anything, that is where whatever anybody is saying, or maybe the very first speaker, that is where it will hold water. If the government has not really taken the issue of security headlong, I wouldn't know where we're going to be now. So it's really a good idea, because you really cannot develop on your own, because we live in a world of interdependency. You need other countries, as well as other countries will as well need you. Again, remember, even though yes, we have the cost of financing business in Nigeria, but make no mistakes about that, the interest rate differential is high in Nigeria compared to other developing nations, and that's why Nigeria remains, the investment country in the whole of Africa, if not the world.
Okay, we're going to be hosting this event next year, and of course, as an emerging economy, we will be having a lot of investors coming into the country, and both from our own part of the world and even from the West. What opportunities do you think that this forum would bring to our country?
Well, in addition to what the government has done so far, I'm thinking that Nigeria will use the opportunity to showcase its potentials as well as opportunities, especially in the areas of information and communication technology, because that is what drives business these days. Again, I will equally want Nigeria to showcase its manufacturing sector, because we need an inclusive growth. Even though yes, our growth is robust, we have 6% on average, above 6% on average, and the inflation is equally stable, at least single digit, and the CBN governor has told us that the inflation will still remain single digit throughout 2014. Okay, so I would envisage that investors who are coming in will cash in on this, and on some of these macroeconomic fundamentals that we have. At least we have a macroeconomic stability in the country. They really can cash in on that. But the area where I want the government to showcase its potentials is in the area of manufacturing. That is the area that will really give our youths the job that that they want. That's the area where we will have growth, and that particular growth will be inclusive and it will be balanced as well.
I know that Nigeria, as an emerging economy, attracts a lot of people to bring in their goods. And our first guest talked about the fact that our country and like other developing countries have become dumping grounds for those products that are not manufactured back home. How do you think that we can safeguard our economy and protect, what we have here by not allowing this dumping of products to continue?
Well, under the WTO, dumping is not allowed, and if Nigeria notices that a particular good that is being dumped into Nigeria, they can seek redress. The WTO has its own framework of seeking redress. However, it's very important that Nigeria should look inwards, especially the Ministry of Trade and Investment. They should really look inwards to see if there are goods. Shortly I learned that Nigeria has come up with the policy that these Tokunbo cards will, in fact, the price, the tax on Tokunbo cards has now increased, which means at least most of those cards will no longer be coming in. That will now help that will help us to look inwards and then help us to equally, develop our automotive industry in Nigeria.
Okay, just before I let you go, I want to ask you this question. Now, this year's event, the World Economic Forum, WEF, shows that the world is more at risk as persistent economic weakness. We see this sapping our ability to tackle environmental challenges. We've seen the report from the WEF. Okay, can you hear me now? If you can hear me.
I can hear you, sorry.
All right, well, I think we're having some audio challenge at this point.
Yeah, I think I can,
okay, I think you can hear me. Can you hear me now? Okay, if you can hear me, I just want to ask you.
I can hear you, go ahead.
Okay, let me ask you this last question before I let you go. Now, this year's findings.
Yeah, I can hear you.
This year's findings show that the world is more at risk as persistent economic weakness saps our ability to tackle environmental challenges. Now, there's a report from the WEF which highlights wealth gaps followed by unsustainable government debt as the top two most prevalent global risks. Now, do you think that this should form part of the focus as Nigeria will be hosting the event next year?
Top two most prevalent global risks. Now, do you think that this should form part of a focus as Nigeria will be hosting the event next year?
Okay, I don't know.
Well, the issue of environmental factors, seem to be on the front burners these days. There is no how any country developing will ignore the issue of environment. It's very vital. In Nigeria last year and even this year, at least we're witnessing flooding. That's an area, and of course, that particular flooding eroded the agricultural lands that we have in the northeast, as well as the south. So the issue of environment will equally be taken seriously. Of course, yet Nigeria will present that to the fore, and in fact, it's a global phenomenon. It's not just a country phenomenon. That's really a global phenomenon, and I believe that the G8, especially the world leaders, they are equally coming up, with policies to make sure that the climate change is really, the climate is really reduced. All the things that will make the climate change to be, to be eroded, the climate to be eroded, will then come down completely. But then they seem not to be arriving at a consensus, because take for instance China, because if they do that, it then means that they will reduce their production, and that will affect their economic growth drastically. So they are really taking their time, but I do know that at the end of it all, world powers will come together and agree, on a partnership that will be win-win. But I do know that, yes, Nigeria will as well bring that to the front burner. But this hinges on the doorsteps of the developed countries, not even the developing countries.
Your thoughts. I have to let you go at this point. Dr. Patterson Ekwuocha, thank you for your time with us on the program. I've been speaking with Dr. Patterson Ekwuocha. He is an economist and from the Department of Economics at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. And earlier on, I spoke to Odilin Inwigbaram. He is a developmental economist, and that's been our package on Tuesday's edition of Business Morning. Thank you very much for your time with us. We do appreciate it, and we hope that you join us again, same time tomorrow. I am Bolaji Akinwale.